You know that moment when your entire world shatters? When everything you believed in, your marriage, your family, your safe home, turns out to be a lie? I lived that moment. My name is Nelson Jensen, and I'm 40 years old. I spent 15 years as a United States Marine, serving with honor, deploying to some of the worst hellholes on earth. I bled for strangers. I fought for people who would never know my name. And I came home from 8 months in Afghanistan expecting to hold my baby girl and kiss my wife. Instead, I found another man in my house, Kevin Whitmore, wearing my bathrobe, holding my 10-month-old daughter near her nursery. The rage that hit me wasn't just anger, it was primal protective fury. I beat him unconscious right there on my daughter's floor. What followed was 3 years of legal warfare, custody battles, criminal trials, systematic destruction of the people who'd betrayed my family. When the truth came out about what Kevin really was, protective fury became calculated vengeance. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've watched your family crumble because of infidelity and lies, you'll understand exactly why I did what I did. Some betrayals don't deserve mercy. They deserve justice, and sometimes justice looks exactly like revenge. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. I pushed open the front door of my house at 600 hours, my duffel bag still on my shoulder, 8 months of desert dust still clinging to my uniform. The flight from Kuwait had landed early. I'd wanted to surprise Samantha and Sophia. Surprise them I did. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I set my bag down carefully, muscle memory from hundreds of patrols keeping my movements silent. That's when I heard it. A male voice upstairs, deep, comfortable, like he belonged there. My blood turned to ice, then immediately to fire. I took the stairs 3 at a time. The voice was coming from near Sophia's nursery, my 10-month-old daughter's room. Every protective instinct I'd honed over 15 years in the Corps exploded to the surface. I threw open the nursery door. A man stood there, mid-30s, soft around the middle, wearing my bathrobe. My bathrobe. He was holding Sophia, bouncing her gently, whispering to her, my daughter, in a stranger's arms. He turned, saw me, and his face went white. "Who the hell are you?" I didn't yell. My voice came out cold, deadly calm. He stumbled backward, nearly dropping Sophia. I'm Kevin Whitmore. You're holding my daughter." I crossed the room in 2 strides and took Sophia from his arms. She immediately started crying, confused by the tension. "Get away from her." "Look, man, I can explain." Samantha appeared in the doorway, wearing only a t-shirt. My t-shirt. Her face went sheet white. "Nelson, you're in my house, wearing my robe, holding my child." I handed Sophia to Samantha, my hands shaking with barely controlled rage. "Explain that, Kevin." Samantha stepped forward. "Nelson, please, just calm down." "Calm down," I rounded on her. "I've been in Afghanistan for 8 months, fighting, bleeding, thinking about you two every goddamn night. And I come home to find this piece of garbage in my daughter's room wearing my clothes." Kevin raised his hands. "Listen, Nelson, I think we're all adults here." "Adults?" I stepped toward him, and he backed up fast. "Adults don't sneak around with married women. Adults don't play daddy to someone else's kid while her father's deployed." "It's not like that," Samantha said, her voice shaking. "Then what is it like, Samantha?" "Explain it to me real simple, because I've been awake for 36 hours and my patience is gone." Kevin cleared his throat. "Look, Samantha and I have feelings for each other. Real feelings. We didn't plan this. It just happened." "It just happened." I laughed, and it was an ugly sound. "You just happened to slip and fall into my wife? You just happened to end up in my house, in my robe, playing house with my family." "Don't talk to him like that," Samantha snapped. "You've been gone for months, Nelson. Months. I was lonely. I was struggling with a baby by myself. So you brought your boyfriend home? Around our daughter?" Kevin stepped forward, incredibly stupid. "Maybe if you were around more, this wouldn't have happened. She needed someone, and you were—" I hit him. My fist connected with his jaw with 15 years of Marine Corps training behind it. He went down like a sandbag, crumpling to the nursery floor. Sophia's crying intensified. "Nelson, stop!" Samantha screamed. But I couldn't stop. This man had been in my house, near my daughter, sleeping with my wife while I was getting shot at overseas. Every night I'd spent in that desert worried about them, missing them. It had all been a lie. Kevin tried to scramble away, blood pouring from his nose. I'm sorry. You're sorry?" I grabbed him by my bathrobe and hauled him up. "You're sorry you got caught." I hit him again. And again. My knuckles split open on his teeth, but I didn't care. All the anger, all the betrayal, all the nights I'd spent in a combat zone dreaming of coming home to my family. It all poured out of me. Samantha was pulling at my arm, screaming. "Stop it! You're going to kill him! Get Sophia out of here!" I roared, and she finally listened, scooping up our wailing daughter and running from the room. Kevin was barely conscious now, his face a bloody mess, whimpering. I let him drop to the floor. "Listen to me carefully," I said, my voice shaking. "You're going to get out of my house, you're going to get out of my life, and you're never, ever going to come near my daughter again. Do you understand me?" He nodded weakly, blood bubbling from his lips. "If I ever see you again, if I ever hear you've been within 100 yards of my family, I will finish what I started. Are we clear?" "Clear," he gasped. I stood up, my hands throbbing, my heart hammering. Kevin crawled toward the door, leaving a blood trail on the carpet. My daughter's carpet. I followed him downstairs, watched him stumble out the front door into the early morning light, still wearing my bathrobe, his face destroyed. Then I turned to Samantha. She stood in the living room. Sophia clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Nelson, don't." I held up my hand. "Don't say anything right now. I need you to take Sophia to your sister's house. Today, right now. This is my house too. I don't care. You brought that man around our daughter. You betrayed everything we had. So you're going to take Sophia somewhere safe while I figure out what happens next." She opened her mouth to argue, saw something in my face, and closed it. "Okay. And Samantha?" I waited until she looked at me. "Get a lawyer, because this marriage is over." That same afternoon, a squad car pulled up in front of my house. 2 uniformed officers stepped out, followed by an older man in a plain suit, detective's badge clipped to his belt. I opened the door before they knocked. "Nelson Jensen?" the detective asked. "That's me. Detective Thomas Harrison. We need to talk about what happened this morning. Kevin Whitmore filed assault and battery charges." I stepped aside. "Come in." They followed me into the living room. The house still smelled like blood, Kevin's blood. One of the uniforms wrinkled his nose. Harrison sat across from me, pulled out a notepad. "Walk me through what happened. Start from when you got home." I told him everything. The surprise arrival at 600, the male voice upstairs. Finding Kevin in Sophia's nursery holding my daughter wearing my bathrobe. The rage that had consumed me when Kevin tried to justify being there. "And then you hit him," Harrison said. "And then I hit him, multiple times." "How many times, Mr. Jensen?" "I don't know. I lost count after the first 3. Harrison showed me photos on his phone. Kevin's destroyed face, nose broken, eyes swollen shut, jaw crooked, teeth missing. The hospital had documented everything. That's serious damage," Harrison said. "He was in my house, with my infant daughter, while I was deployed. I understand the emotional situation here." Harrison leaned back, studied me. "But you put this man in the hospital. The law doesn't care about your emotions, Mr. Jensen. You could be looking at serious charges, aggravated assault, maybe worse if he'd died. Then charge me." Harrison sighed. He pulled out another folder, flipped through pages. My service record. 15 years, decorated, honorable discharge pending. "You served this country," he said quietly. "Afghanistan, Iraq before that. No history of violence outside of combat. No domestic incidents. Clean record." He closed the folder. "But none of that matters if the DA decides to prosecute. So what happens now? I take your statement, document the scene, submit my report." Harrison met my eyes. "And you need to get a lawyer, son. A good one." Because Kevin Whitmore's injuries are severe enough that this isn't going away. Understood. They took my formal statement, photographed my split knuckles, documented the blood trail on Sophia's carpet. The whole process took 2 hours. When they finally left, Harrison paused at the door. For what it's worth, if I came home and found another man with my kid, I'd have done the same thing. But that doesn't change the law. I know. That evening I called Diane Clarkson. She had a reputation, ruthless, strategic, took no prisoners in court. Exactly what I needed. She met me the next morning at her office downtown. Mid-40s, sharp dresser, eyes that missed nothing. Tell me everything, she said. I did. The deployment, the homecoming, Kevin, the beating, the assault charges. Diane smiled like a shark. They're going to try to paint you as violent, unstable, PTSD, anger issues, danger to your daughter. I'm not. I know you're not. But Samantha's going to fight for custody, and Kevin's assault charges give her ammunition. We need to get ahead of this. How? We go nuclear. Diane leaned forward. We file for divorce immediately, citing adultery. We demand full custody based on her infidelity, and poor judgment bringing a stranger around your infant daughter while you were deployed and couldn't protect her. And we counterattack Kevin on every front possible. What do you mean, every front? I mean, we dig into his background, his history, his finances, everything. If there's dirt, we find it and we use it. She pulled out a legal pad. Can you afford a private investigator? Yes. Good. Because we're going to war. 2 days later, Samantha's filing arrived. Petition for legal separation. Request for temporary custody of Sophia. Statement from her attorney citing my violent outburst and unstable mental state following deployment. Claiming I was a danger to our daughter. That hurt worse than anything. She was trying to take Sophia. Using my protection of Sophia against me. I called Diane immediately. I saw it, she said. Already drafting our response. Emergency custody motion based on adultery and reckless endangerment. I've got statements from 3 neighbors who saw Kevin's car in your driveway over the past 4 months. Dates, times, everything. How'd you get those so fast? I'm good at my job, Nelson, and people talk. Your neighbors knew something was wrong. The temporary custody hearing happened fast. 1 week after I came home. I sat in that family courtroom, hands still bandaged from beating Kevin's face in, and watched Samantha's attorney stand up. Julie Sanders was thin, professional, confident. She looked at me like I was a monster. Your Honor, she began. Mr. Jensen has demonstrated extreme violence and poor judgment. He brutally assaulted my client's friend without provocation. Your Honor, Julie Sanders began, her voice clear and confident. Mr. Jensen has demonstrated extreme violence and poor judgment. He brutally assaulted my client's friend, Mr. Kevin Whitmore, without provocation. He put Mr. Whitmore in the hospital with multiple facial fractures, a broken nose, and a severe concussion. This is not a man who should be around a small child. Judge Albert Rodriguez looked at me over his glasses. Stern man, mid-60s, the kind of face that had seen everything and wasn't impressed by much. Mr. Jensen, do you dispute these facts? No, Your Honor. My voice came out steady. I hit him. Multiple times. Julie Sanders looked triumphant. But, I continued, I came home from 8 months in Afghanistan to find a stranger in my house, in my bathrobe, holding my 10-month-old daughter. A man who'd been sleeping with my wife while I was deployed. I reacted the way any father would react when he finds an unknown man near his child. Rodriguez's expression didn't change. Your Honor, I spent 8 months in a war zone, missing my daughter's first words, her first steps, thinking about my family every single day. And I came home to find my wife had replaced me, had brought another man into my daughter's life, into her nursery. I snapped. That doesn't excuse violence, Mr. Jensen. No, Your Honor, it doesn't, but it explains it. Diane stood. Your Honor, my client served this country with distinction for 15 years. He has no history of violence outside his military service. No domestic incidents, no complaints, nothing. He came home to the worst betrayal a soldier can face, a cheating spouse who endangered their child by bringing a stranger into the home. His reaction was wrong, yes, but it was the reaction of a protective father, not an unstable man. Julie jumped in. Mrs. Jensen brought Mr. Whitmore around their daughter for months without incident, Your Honor. Mr. Jensen is the one who created a violent, traumatic situation. Mrs. Jensen committed adultery while her husband was serving overseas. Diane cut in, her voice sharp as a knife. She brought her affair partner into the marital home, around a 10-month-old infant, repeatedly and without her husband's knowledge. That shows catastrophically poor judgment. My client is a combat veteran who reacted to finding another man with his daughter. Mrs. Jensen is a woman who prioritized her affair over her child's stability. Rodriguez held up his hand. That's enough. I've heard enough. He shuffled papers. The courtroom went silent. This is a mess, Rodriguez said finally. A tragic, unnecessary mess. He looked at both of us. Here's what's going to happen. Temporary joint custody. Mr. Jensen, you'll have Sophia Monday through Wednesday. Mrs. Jensen, you'll have her Thursday through Sunday. My chest tightened. Not full custody, but something. Exchanges will happen at a neutral location, the police station parking lot. Neither of you is to bring any romantic partners around the child during this custody period. And Mr. Jensen, you're going to anger management counseling. Non-negotiable. Your Honor, Samantha started. I said that's enough. Rodriguez's voice could have cut steel. Both of you need to grow up and remember there's a baby caught in the middle of this. Next case. He banged his gavel. I walked out of that courtroom with partial custody of my daughter. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. Diane caught up with me in the hallway. That went better than expected. She's using my service against me, making me sound dangerous. Let her try. Meanwhile, we're building our case. Diane lowered her voice. I've got a private investigator, Daniel Wright, former cop. He's digging into Kevin's background right now. When we get to the final custody hearing, we're going to bury her. What about the assault charges? We'll deal with those, one battle at a time. The next 2 weeks were hell. Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, I'd meet Samantha in the police station parking lot. She'd hand Sophia over without a word, wouldn't even look at me. Thursday and Sunday evenings, I'd do the same in reverse. Sophia cried every time. She didn't understand why Mommy and Daddy kept passing her back and forth, why everything had changed. I attended my court-ordered anger management sessions, sat in a circle with strangers, talking about controlling emotions, identifying triggers. The counselor meant well, but she had no idea what it felt like to come home from war and find your family destroyed. Then Daniel Wright called. You're going to want to see this, he said. We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the courthouse. Quiet place, mostly empty at 2 in the afternoon. Daniel Wright looked like what he was, former cop, somewhere in his 50s, the kind of guy who noticed everything. He slid a manila folder across the table. Kevin Whitmore, 36 years old, works in insurance sales, divorced twice. Daniel tapped the folder. And he's been sued twice for harassment by female co-workers. I opened it. Police reports, restraining order requests, pages of testimony from women who'd worked with Kevin, claiming he'd made unwanted advances, followed them to their cars, sent inappropriate messages after hours. Is any of this criminal? Nothing stuck, but there's a pattern. Daniel leaned back. Boundary issues. The guy doesn't understand the word no. Last incident was 18 months ago, right before he got fired from his previous job. My jaw tightened. And Samantha just, what, didn't ask questions? She met him 2 years ago. He sold her a life insurance policy. They stayed in touch. Daniel's expression darkened. Started the affair about a month after you deployed. I stared at the documents. Harassment allegations. Multiple women. And Samantha had brought him around Sophia, around our baby. There's more, Daniel said quietly. I looked up. I found 3 women willing to testify that Kevin showed them inappropriate photos on his phone, photos of children. Kids at beaches, playgrounds, birthday parties. He paused. He'd make comments about them. My stomach turned. What kind of comments? Disturbing ones. Nothing overtly sexual, but off. Wrong. The kind of thing that makes your skin crawl. Daniel met my eyes. The photos themselves weren't illegal, but combined with his behavior, Red flags everywhere. Are you saying? I'm saying Kevin Whitmore has an unhealthy interest in children. Nothing prosecutable yet, but enough to raise serious concerns. Daniel's voice went flat. And he was alone with your infant daughter. Repeatedly. The coffee in my stomach felt like acid. I thought about Kevin in Sophia's nursery that morning, holding her, bouncing her, whispering to her. How many other times had he been alone with my daughter? There's one more thing. Daniel pulled out another document. Kevin has a sealed juvenile record. I couldn't get the details, sealed means sealed, but I found someone who knew him in high school. And? Kevin was arrested at 17 for breaking into a neighbor's house and going through their daughter's bedroom. Just going through it. Her clothes, her things. The family caught him and called the cops. Daniel's expression was grim. Charges were dropped because he was a minor and it was a first offense. I felt cold. He's a predator. Yes, and your wife brought him around your baby. Daniel closed the folder. Nelson, this changes everything. This isn't just about custody anymore. I looked at the folder, at the evidence of what Kevin really was, what Samantha had brought into our home. What do? We take this to the DA. Immediately. Daniel leaned forward. If Kevin was in your house around your infant daughter with this history, he may have committed crimes, real crimes. And we need to make sure they investigate him properly. Steve Parker arrived at Diane's office within the hour. My criminal defense attorney, mid-40s, 15 years of courtroom experience. He'd been handling the assault charges Kevin pressed against me. Daniel spread the documents across Diane's conference table. Steve picked them up one by one, his expression growing darker with each page. This man was in your house. Steve looked up at me. Alone with your infant daughter. With this history. That's what we found, Daniel said. Steve set down the papers showing Kevin's harassment suits. Boundary violations with women. Fired for inappropriate behavior. And he had access to a 10-month-old baby. There's more, Daniel said, pointing to the testimony about the photos. Steve read it. His jaw tightened. Inappropriate interest in children. Photos on his phone. Comments that made people uncomfortable. Steve looked at me. Nelson, you may have saved your daughter from something terrible. The words hit me hard. I'd been so focused on the betrayal, the affair, the rage I'd felt that morning. But this was bigger than adultery. What do? I asked. We turn this over to the DA, immediately. Steve gathered the documents. And we push for them to investigate Kevin Whitmore properly. Because if what Daniel found is accurate, Kevin committed a crime just by being near Sophia. What crime? Depends on what they find. But a man with this history, this pattern, around an infant? That's not an accident. That's intent. 1 week later, the DA's office opened a formal investigation into Kevin Whitmore. They moved fast. Interviewed the women from his past, the co-workers he'd harassed, the ones who'd seen the photos on his phone. They petitioned to unseal his juvenile record. They obtained warrants and subpoenaed his phone and computer. I waited. Went through my custody exchanges with Samantha in tense silence. Held Sophia those 3 days a week I had her and tried not to think about what Kevin might have done during those 4 months. 2 weeks after the investigation started, the DA called me in. His office was on the 3rd floor of the county building. Marcus Brennan, late 50s career prosecutor. He'd seen everything. But when I walked in, he looked shaken. Mr. Jensen, sit down. I sat. Brennan opened a file on his desk. We executed the warrant on Kevin Whitmore's computer. What we found... He paused. You need to understand what we're dealing with here. My stomach nodded. Tell me. Thousands of photos, downloaded from social media, Facebook, Instagram, public accounts, photos of children. Brennan's voice went flat. Kids at beaches, playgrounds, birthday parties. He organized them into folders by age and appearance. I felt sick. The photos themselves aren't illegal, Brennan continued. They're publicly available images, but the collection, the organization, the sheer volume, it shows intent. It shows obsession. And Sophia, Brennan's expression darkened. He had photos of your daughter. Hundreds of them. The room tilted. Hundreds? Photos he took during his time at your house. Sophia in her crib. Sophia in the bath. Sophia in her bedroom, all saved in a hidden folder on his laptop separate from everything else. I couldn't breathe. Kevin had photographed my daughter, had saved those photos, had looked at them, organized them, kept them hidden. Did he? I couldn't finish the sentence. We found no evidence of physical molestation, Brennan said quickly. No indication he touched her inappropriately. But Nelson, the intent is clear. The photos, the pattern of behavior, his history, it all points to grooming. He was building up to something. He targeted Samantha, I said slowly. Yes. Kevin Whitmore is a predator. He targeted your wife specifically because she had a young daughter. The affair was just his way to gain access to your child. The rage I'd felt that morning, finding Kevin in Sophia's nursery, flooded back. But this time it was colder, more focused. What are the charges? Child endangerment, unlawful surveillance of a minor, possession of inappropriate images of a child. We're also looking at stalking charges. Brennan leaned forward. Combined, he's looking at serious prison time. And the assault charges against me? Brennan smiled grimly. Dropped. You defended your daughter from a predator, Mr. Jensen. We're not prosecuting you for that. He paused. In fact, we want you to testify against Whitmore. Tell the jury what you found that morning, what you did, why you did it. I looked at him. You want me to tell them I beat him unconscious. I want you to tell them you came home from serving your country and found a sexual predator alone with your infant daughter. And I want the jury to understand that you stopped him before he could do what he was planning. 3 months after I walked through my front door and found Kevin Whitmore holding my daughter, his trial began. Same courthouse. Same building where Samantha and I had fought over Sophia. But this time Kevin sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, wrists shackled. He'd tried to make bail. Judge Rodriguez had denied it, called him a flight risk and a danger to children. Kevin's attorney, a public defender named Michael Torres, stood before the jury and painted his client as a victim, a man in love who'd made poor choices, a man who'd been brutally assaulted without provocation. My client took photos of a child he cared about, Torres argued, photos any family friend might take. And for that he was beaten unconscious by a violent man with military training. Marcus Brennan, the prosecutor, stood up for his opening statement, and he tore Torres's narrative apart in under 5 minutes. The prosecution's case was surgical. They brought in the women from Kevin's past. 3 of them, all willing to testify. The first was Jennifer Caldwell, mid-30s, former co-worker from Kevin's insurance job. She sat in the witness box and told the jury about Kevin's behavior, how he'd followed her to her car, sent inappropriate texts, made comments about her body that made her skin crawl. Did you report this behavior? Brennan asked. Yes, to HR. Kevin was fired 2 weeks later. The second woman, Angela Vasquez, testified about the photos on Kevin's phone. Photos of children at a public pool. He showed them to me during a lunch break, Angela said, her voice shaking. Said he liked taking pictures of kids. Said they were innocent, pure. The way he talked about them, it wasn't normal. Did you report this? I told my supervisor. They moved me to a different department so I wouldn't have to work with him. The third woman, Patricia O'Brien, described how Kevin had asked about her daughter. Repeatedly. Wanted to know what school she went to, what time she got out, if Patricia needed a babysitter. I told him to stay away from my family, Patricia said, and I got a restraining order when he showed up at my daughter's soccer game. Kevin sat at the defense table, his face pale, sweating. The jury took notes. Their expressions shifted from neutral to disgusted. Then Brennan showed them the evidence from Kevin's computer. Folders upon folders of photos. Children at beaches in swimsuits, children at playgrounds, children at birthday parties, faces circled in red. These images were downloaded from public social media accounts, Brennan explained to the jury. Organized by age, by hair color, by... He paused. Physical development. You could hear people shifting in their seats, uncomfortable, horrified. Then Brennan showed them the photos of Sophia. I'd seen them before. Brennan had prepared me. But watching them displayed on a screen in front of strangers made my hands clench. Sophia in her crib, sleeping. Sophia in the bathtub, naked. Sophia in her bedroom, vulnerable, unaware. These photos were taken by the defendant, Brennan said quietly, while he was alone with this infant, while her father was deployed overseas, serving his country. A woman on the jury wiped her eyes. When they called me to testify, I walked to the stand and took the oath. Brennan asked me to describe that morning. I told them everything. Coming home at 600 hours after 8 months in Afghanistan. Pushing open the door, expecting to surprise my wife and daughter. Hearing a male voice upstairs, taking the stairs 3 at a time. And what did you find, Mr. Jensen? Kevin Whitmore in my daughter's nursery, holding Sophia, wearing my bathrobe. What did you do? I took my daughter from his arms, and I asked him who the hell he was. Brennan walked me through the confrontation. Kevin's attempts to justify the affair. Samantha appearing in the doorway. The rage building in my chest. Mr. Jensen, when you struck Kevin Whitmore, what were you thinking? I looked directly at the jury. I was thinking that this man had been in my house, with my daughter. While I was overseas and couldn't protect her, I was thinking he'd been wearing my clothes, sleeping in my bed, playing father to my child. And I was thinking I'd kill anyone who tried to hurt Sophia. The courtroom was silent. Did you know about Mr. Whitmore's history at that time? No. I just knew he was a stranger alone with my infant daughter. And now that you know what was on his computer, my jaw tightened. Now I know I stopped him before he could do what he was planning. Torres tried to cross-examine me, tried to paint me as unstable, violent, dangerous. Mr. Jensen, you beat my client unconscious, multiple blows to the face. You fractured his skull. I defended my daughter from a predator. You didn't know he was a predator that morning. I knew he was a stranger who had no business being near my child. That was enough. Torres tried again. Don't you think your reaction was excessive? No. The jury looked at me with something close to respect. After 3 days of testimony, they deliberated less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Child endangerment, unlawful surveillance of a minor, possession of inappropriate images of a child, stalking. Kevin's face crumpled when they read the verdict. Judge Rodriguez presided over sentencing 2 weeks later. He looked at Kevin with pure contempt. Mr. Whitmore, you are a predator who targeted a vulnerable family for the purpose of gaining access to a child. You manipulated a lonely mother. You betrayed a deployed service member. You endangered an infant. Rodriguez's voice went cold. The photos on your computer show clear intent to harm. Your presence is a danger to society. He paused. 8 years in state prison. Mandatory registration as a sex offender upon release. Kevin stood up, shaking. I didn't touch her. I never touched her. Rodriguez's expression didn't change. Because her father came home and stopped you before you could, Mr. Whitmore. The bailiffs led Kevin out in handcuffs. 1 week after Kevin's sentencing, Diane filed the emergency motion. I sat across from her in her office while she explained the strategy. The conviction changes everything. Kevin's not just your wife's affair partner anymore, he's a convicted predator. And Samantha brought him into your home, gave him access to Sophia, enabled everything that happened. She's going to fight this. Let her try. Diane's smile was sharp. We have a predator's conviction. We have photos he took of your daughter that were used as evidence in a criminal trial. We have proof she ignored red flags because she was having an affair. Judge Rodriguez already doesn't like her. This is just going to bury her. The emergency custody hearing happened fast. 3 days later, we were back in Rodriguez's courtroom. Diane stood and laid it out clearly. Your Honor, the defendant Kevin Whitmore has been convicted of serious crimes related to his access to the minor child Sophia Jensen. He took inappropriate photographs of this infant. He organized them alongside images of other children in a manner that demonstrated predatory intent. And Mrs. Jensen brought him into the home. Repeatedly, alone with the child, she created the environment that allowed this predator to victimize her own daughter. Julie Sanders stood up quickly. Your Honor, my client had no knowledge of Mr. Whitmore's. Mrs. Jensen. Rodriguez cut her off, looking directly at Samantha. You brought a sexual predator into your home, a man who is now serving 8 years in state prison. He took photos of your infant daughter that were used to convict him. How do you explain this? Samantha was crying before she even started. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what he was. You were told about his history with women, were you not? Rodriguez's voice was ice. You were told he'd been fired for harassment, sued by co-workers. You ignored every single red flag because you were having an affair. But Sophia's safe. Nelson stopped anything from happening. Your husband stopped something from happening because he came home early and found Mr. Whitmore in your daughter's nursery. Rodriguez leaned forward. If he hadn't, Mrs. Jensen, would you have noticed? Would you have seen the signs if Mr. Whitmore had molested your child? Samantha couldn't answer, just sobbed. I spoke quietly. You already let someone hurt her. Samantha flinched like I'd hit her. Rodriguez didn't even deliberate. Full legal and physical custody is awarded to Mr. Jensen. Mrs. Jensen, you will have supervised visitation only. 4 hours every other Sunday, court-appointed guardian present at all times. Your Honor, please. You will complete parenting classes. You will undergo a full psychological evaluation. You will demonstrate consistent, appropriate judgment for a minimum of 1 year before this court will even consider unsupervised visitation. Rodriguez's expression was granite. Your daughter's safety is paramount. You have proven yourself unable to protect her. This hearing is concluded. Julie tried to say something, but Rodriguez was already standing, already done with us. The divorce proceedings came next. Samantha wanted half of everything. The house I'd bought before we got married. My military pension I'd earned through 15 years of service. The savings I'd built. I put up with your absences, she told the mediator. I dealt with the military lifestyle. I raised Sophia alone while you were deployed. I deserve compensation. Diane pulled out the bank records. Mrs. Jensen spent $15,472 on her affair with Kevin Whitmore. Dinners at expensive restaurants, gifts, a weekend trip to Las Vegas. Diane slid the statements across the table. All of it came from the joint account, combat pay Mr. Jensen sent home to support his family. Samantha went pale. She spent his deployment pay on her affair, Diane continued. Money he earned while being shot at in Afghanistan. Money meant to support their infant daughter. She spent it on a convicted predator. The mediator looked sick. Judge Rodriguez handled the final divorce decree himself. Mr. Jensen keeps the house. Full military pension. All savings and assets except for $5,000, which is the legal minimum Mrs. Jensen is entitled to under state law. Samantha's lawyer started to object. Mrs. Jensen committed adultery with a man who is now a convicted sex offender, Rodriguez said flatly. She endangered her child. She spent marital funds on her affair. She's fortunate to receive anything at all. He signed the papers. Supervised visitation remains in effect. 4 hours every other Sunday. This court is done with this matter. 7 months after I'd come home from deployment, the divorce was final. Samantha had lost everything. 6 months after the divorce finalized, life settled into something I'd never expected to have. Normal. Sophia was 3 years old now. Bright, funny, happy. We had our routines. Breakfast together every morning. She liked scrambled eggs with cheese, cut into tiny pieces. Walks in the park after preschool, her little hand in mine. Bedtime stories where she'd fall asleep halfway through, her breathing going soft and even. She was thriving. No trauma from that morning. No nightmares. The child psychologist I'd hired told me Sophia was developing perfectly. No signs of distress or behavioral issues. She didn't remember Kevin. Didn't remember that terrible morning when I'd come home. Thank God for that. Samantha still had her supervised visits. 4 hours every other Sunday. Rita, the court-appointed supervisor, sent reports to the court after each one. They were heartbreaking to read even for me. Samantha trying desperately to connect with Sophia, bringing toys, trying to play games. But Sophia just sat there, polite but distant. She didn't understand why this woman only showed up for a few hours, why a stranger sat in the corner watching them, why she couldn't go home with mommy anymore. The trust was broken. A 3-year-old couldn't articulate it, but she felt it. After 6 months of supervised visits, Samantha started canceling. She'd reschedule, then cancel again. Sometimes she just wouldn't show up. Sophia stopped asking about her. I heard through mutual friends, people who'd known us both, who were careful about what they said to me now, that Samantha had moved to a tiny apartment on the east side. Rough neighborhood. She was working 2 jobs just to make rent. The legal fees from the divorce and custody battle had bankrupted her. She'd lost everything. Her home, her daughter, her reputation. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. Then I'd remember those photos of Sophia on Kevin's computer, and I felt nothing but contempt. She'd brought a predator into our daughter's life. Whatever consequences she faced, she'd earned every single one. I started dating again, carefully, slowly. Clara Robinson taught at Sophia's preschool. Kind face, patient voice, wonderful with children. We'd talked a few times during pickup, casual conversations that gradually became longer. She asked me out for coffee. I almost said no. I wasn't ready. Didn't know if I'd ever be ready. But something about her made me say yes. I told her everything on our 3rd date. The deployment, the betrayal, the violence, the trials, Kevin's conviction, the custody battle. I expected her to run. She stayed. You protected your daughter, she told me that night. You did what any good father would do. Don't ever apologize for that. 6 months after we started dating, Clara met Sophia. They clicked immediately. Clara never tried to replace Samantha. She just became another person who loved Sophia, who showed up, who was there. We built something real, slow and careful and genuine. 18 months after Kevin's conviction, I got a call from the DA's office. Mr. Jensen, I wanted to inform you. Kevin Whitmore was assaulted in prison. Badly. My hand tightened on the phone. Is he dead? No. But he's in the infirmary. Multiple broken bones, internal injuries. He was in general population despite being a sex offender, and the other inmates found out what he was in for. Good. There was a pause. He's being moved to protective custody, and Mr. Jensen, he tried to claim you somehow arranged the attack, that you have contacts inside who got to him. I laughed. Actually laughed. I don't have contacts in prison, I don't need them. That's what I told him. The inmates found out on their own. They saw his record, saw what he did to your daughter. The prosecutor's voice hardened. The system has its own way of handling predators, Mr. Jensen. Kevin would spend the rest of his sentence in protective custody. Isolated, afraid, exactly where he belonged. 2 years after that morning I came home from deployment. I took Sophia grocery shopping on a Saturday afternoon. She sat in the cart, swinging her legs, chattering about her preschool friend's birthday party next week. 4 years old, happy, safe. I turned down the cereal aisle and saw Samantha. She looked exhausted, older than her years, worn down by consequences. She saw Sophia and froze. "Hi, baby," she said softly. Sophia looked at her blankly. "Who's that, Daddy?" My heart broke a little, even for Samantha. "That's Samantha, sweetie. Remember?" Sophia shook her head. She didn't remember. Samantha started crying right there in the cereal aisle. "I'm your mommy," she whispered. 3 years after that morning I came home from deployment, I married Clara. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family, my old Marine buddies, Clara's parents, a handful of people who'd stood by us through everything. Sophia was our flower girl, 5 years old, delighted in her white dress, scattering petals everywhere with complete abandon. She took her job seriously, concentrating hard on each handful, making sure the petals landed just right. Clara cried watching her. Happy tears. I'd invited Samantha. Wanted to be fair. Wanted to give her one last chance to be part of Sophia's life. She didn't come. She sent a card instead. $20 tucked inside and a note in shaky handwriting. "I'm sorry for everything. Be happy." I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But the feeling passed. Sophia called Clara Mama without any prompting. Just started saying it one day, natural as breathing. Clara cried then too. Pulled Sophia into her arms and held her tight, whispering thank you into Sophia's hair. My daughter had a real family now. 2 parents who loved her, who put her first, who would die before letting anyone hurt her. I'd left the Marines 6 months after Kevin's trial. 15 years of service, an honorable discharge, and a clean transition to civilian life. I started working as a contractor, training corporate security teams. Good money. Stable hours. Home every night with Sophia. The work came easy, teaching executives and security personnel how to spot threats, how to respond, how to protect what mattered. I knew something about that. We had a good life, quiet, stable, full of love. Sophia was smart, funny, loving. She had friends at school, birthday parties to attend, a bedroom full of toys and books. She didn't remember Kevin, didn't remember those months when a predator had access to her. I'd made sure of that. Sometimes late at night after Sophia and Clara were asleep, I thought about that morning, the rage I'd felt, the violence that had erupted from somewhere primal and protective, the sound of my fists hitting Kevin's face, the blood, the fear in his eyes as he realized what was happening. Part of me regretted it, the legal mess, the cost, the scrutiny, the trauma of reliving it all in courtrooms, but most of me didn't. I'd protected my daughter. I'd destroyed the people who'd betrayed her and endangered her. I'd rebuilt my life into something better than it had been before. Kevin was still in prison, protective custody, isolated and afraid. He had 4 more years left on his sentence. And when he got out, he'd be a registered sex offender for the rest of his miserable life. Unable to work most jobs, unable to live near schools or parks. Marked forever as exactly what he was, a predator who got caught. His life was over. He'd destroyed it himself by being what he was. I'd just made sure everyone knew it. Samantha had lost everything by choosing Kevin over her family. Last I heard, she'd moved to Arizona or New Mexico, somewhere far away, trying to outrun her reputation, trying to start over. She sent birthday cards to Sophia every year, $20 and a brief note. Sophia didn't remember her anymore, didn't ask about her, didn't miss her. She had Clara now, a mother who showed up, who was there, who loved her without conditions. Me? I had Sophia. I had Clara. I had peace. Real peace. The kind you build from ashes. People ask me sometimes if I went too far that morning. Friends, acquaintances, people who hear the story secondhand. They want to know if beating Kevin unconscious was worth the legal trouble, the anger management classes, the scrutiny. I tell them the truth, I'd do it again. Not because I'm a violent person, not because I enjoy hurting people, but because when you come home from war and find another man in your house, near your baby daughter wearing your clothes, and then you learn he's a predator who was grooming your child, something primal takes over. You're not thinking about legal consequences. You're not thinking about anger management or court appearances. You're thinking, threat to my child, and you eliminate the threat. Kevin learned that day that actions have consequences. He's learning it every day in prison, isolated, afraid, marked forever. Samantha learned it over 3 years, slowly and painfully, losing her daughter, her home, her life. Me? I learned that sometimes the only way to save your family is to destroy the one you have and build a new one from the ashes. Sometimes revenge and justice are the same thing, especially when that revenge ends with a predator behind bars and an innocent child safe. That's the best kind of justice there is. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.